What if we can positively impact society by reshaping the mindsets of young men? And while we're at it, let me ask you, what does it mean to be a man? My name is Dennis Morolda, a father, a teacher, a coach, a mentor, and a principal with over 2 decades of experience shaping the minds and characters of young men across the United States. If these questions resonate, if you're a young man looking to improve your life or a parent looking for tools to help your son become the best version of himself, the Building Men podcast was created for you. What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Building Men podcast. If you're a first-time listener, or welcome back if you have been here before. My name is Dennis Morolda, and I am joined today, different guest than we're used to here on Building Men. My guest name today is Liam Henkel. I met Liam a little bit over 2 years ago now, and the introduction came via Angelo Cisco, who has been a guest on the podcast. Angelo did a workshop, and he had several men in this workshop that he was leading through his alpha hippie lifestyle way. And I did a brief introduction of Building Men and what Building Men was all about. And one of the guys in his group was a guy named Jason Henkel. And Jason runs the business called Focus to Evolve. Jason became a guest on the Building Men podcast about a year ago now. And Jason and I connected, and Jason said, I'm wondering if you would have an opportunity to talk to my son, Liam. He's going through some struggles right now, and he could use some advice, some guidance, some mentorship. Let's see if this relationship could potentially work out. So I had a first coaching call with Liam in January of 2022. So this is more than 2 years ago now. And he and I have connected and stayed in touch over the past 2 years. And I have seen him go through trials and tribulations, some highs, some lows, and everywhere in between over the last 2 years. To learn more about our programs, including one-on-one mentorship coaching, the foundation, our Building Men online group community for young men, or to bring a Building Men experience to your school, check out our website, buildingmen.io, or click the links in the bio. Now, back to the show. And he's been a part of the foundation group and someone that I have seen blossom into a young man who is just on the precipice of taking over the world. So this will be his first podcast of many, I'm sure, when he's like Hal Elrod or Tony Robbins or, Ed Milet in the future. Think of, Elon Musk as an 18-year-old. This is who you're going to be listening to today. So Liam, what's up, dude? I'm glad you're here.
How are you doing?
Yeah, dude. So I know I set you up with some big shoes to fill right there, but I honestly believe that I talked to your parents about that, and I just said I'm so proud of the young man that you are right now, and just seeing you go through so much over the last 2 years, and always having this idea of what's possible. And every suggestion that I made to you were like initially a little resistant. And then finally you're like, all right, I'm going to try these things. And what I've seen you go through and overcome, it's been really remarkable. So take us back in time. Talk to us a little bit about who you were when we first met. So you were 15, about to turn 16 years old, like right around that time frame. Talk to us a little bit about what life was like for you then.
Yeah, so basically when I first met Dennis, I was going through like my first crisis. We was just coming out of COVID around that time. And I had just gone through a bad breakup for me. We had dated for about 2.5 years, and we ended up breaking up, and it felt like the end of the world for me. And I just started spiraling, just getting into some bad things that I shouldn't have been getting into at that time, and really just in a really low point in my life, just not really doing anything, laying in bed, depressed, just thinking to myself how bad things are for me, and just really playing like a victim role the whole time, where really didn't think things were going to get better, and I wasn't trying anything to try and make myself better. And that's when my dad introduced me to Dennis, and we started talking, and right away things started to get a little bit better. From the start, first few meetings, not much was very happening. Not much was happening just because I was still very much in resistance to. I was just in the victim mentality where I was just sitting there thinking that nothing would get better, and so I was very strong to that belief. But Dennis was very much able to help me out with that. went from being complete victim mentality to Dennis and I made some character in my head on who this was. We named him Dom. Um, just just to put a name to the trash talk in my head, just all the negative things that I was saying to myself, put a name to it so it seemed like it was less of me saying it. And within, I'd say, about 3 or 4 months, I was starting to kind of come out of my little rut there and started to see the brighter side of things, started to see my goals again, just really what I was working for before I was in a rut. Um, just starting to try and get my goals back, just everything that bad that happened, trying to get it out of the way. So before anything before the breakup happened or anything, but always been a very much entrepreneurial, just trying to start my own businesses. So when I was about, I think, like 13, started my first little business, nothing registered or anything, but I would train people on cryptocurrency, so like Bitcoin and Ethereum, because my dad and I, we were decently, my dad was a very early investor in it, but then
Yeah.
I kind of hopped on the train pretty early as well. And then so I just started teaching people about that. Um, but lost didn't really enjoy that very much. So that
And I was actually one of your clients for that. I had
yeah,
me and my son Denny, we jumped on a Zoom meeting with you. This is when you were like, I'm gonna give this a shot. I'm like, all right, I'll so it was I think it was $50 you
yep,
charge for the training. So I paid you $50. We jumped on and you did an hour long workshop teaching us about crypto and NFTs.
yeah, yeah. That was basically the whole thing. It was
Yep.
yeah, it was fun for a bit, and then it was like, huh, man, showing the same slideshow is getting a little bit boring. So kind of jumped ship on that. Really just trying to find something that maybe clicked with me that I enjoyed doing. So hopped on board with starting up a clothing brand. Feel like I've heard every other entrepreneur's like, yeah, I always started with a clothing brand,
Yeah.
just trying to build something, and so called it Third Eye Threads, and made a couple hoodies. I think Dennis is actually
I'm
wearing the hoodie
wearing
right
it
now.
right now. I'm wearing the hoodie that I purchased from you as well.
Yep, yep. Dennis has always supported the businesses. So yeah, did a clothing brand for a bit. Made some hats. It was more of like a snowboarder, skateboarding niche thing. Uh, Went pretty hard on that for a while, but I didn't have any money. I wasn't making any money at the time, so it's kind of hard to make that work a bit. Um, and then that would bring us to about like a bit over half a year ago. Or well, I guess it was a year ago now. Um, I found out that my girlfriend I'm still with right now was pregnant. So we'd been dating for a bit over a year, and then we found out that she was pregnant, and things had to turn around there pretty quick because I was at the time to make any money. I was just working as a lifeguard at a pool, local pool, making like $10 an hour or something, and just really wasn't going to work for me. So that day, I was like, okay, well, I gotta I gotta quit this job and go find something that I can actually like provide for a family for now. So in the time being, because as a lifeguard, I couldn't pick my own shifts or anything. I was working like 3 hours, 2 days a week. So then I hopped over to door dashing for a bit while I was trying to find something that could make me a decent amount of money. So I started door dashing and I was making like $100 a day. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm rich. And
Yep.
I'd never made any money like that before. And during the time, I was just in the car the whole time. So I was just trying to educate myself on money and mindset, everything. So just listening to 4 or 5 hours of podcasts, YouTube videos, just kind of anything that I could educate myself with. Did that for about a month or two. And then at that point, it was starting to get warmer again. So it was probably June, I'd say. It was about June during this time. And I just saw a random TikTok one day. It's always how I get my business ideas is just saw some kid try it on TikTok and saw one where it was a window cleaning company. So did a little bit of research into it. Watched this guy's TikTok page because he just has like himself going and door knocking random
Hmm.
houses. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna try this kid's pitch and just go around my neighborhood here. So just went around my neighborhood and probably I knocked like 10 houses and I was able to book like 5 clients. And so I was like, okay, well, this could actually work. So I landed a few clients without having any equipment or anything. No money, no equipment, and landed a few clients, was like, okay, let's do it this weekend. And then just borrowed some money from my parents to get some really cheap cleaning equipment and then started cleaning those windows of the houses I got and just kind of kept rolling a little bit, door knocking, cleaning windows, door knocking, cleaning windows, hired a guy or two, just kept going, upgraded equipment, um, was bringing in good money at this point, enough to provide for a family, and just kept that going through the whole winter. And then something cool happened was I got invited to a mastermind program. So it was my dad and I got invited to a mastermind program out in the Outer Banks. Um, the guy who like owned the place that we were staying at was my mentor. So my mentor in business just kind of taught me everything that I know about anything business related. And so he invited us out to the Outer Banks to just come join him with a couple of his entrepreneurial friends. And so we went out there and I met this guy out there named Adam. His name was Adam. And we ended up hitting it off really well. And he has this credit card processing company. And so he ended up inviting me onto his sales team to help him sell his credit card processing. He's a really cool guy. Um, there's just some gaps in the credit card industry with service and chargeback fees, all sorts of things. So he really helps fix that and invited me onto the team. And now I'm just doing that during the cold months when I can't be washing windows. So I was wondering all summer what I was going to do in the winter to make some money. So that's kind of what I found.
So you never let any, you know, grass grow underneath your feet at all, right?
Mm-mm.
Since that time that once we got you out of your rut, you know, once we were able to get you unstuck, you were constantly looking for the next thing. And I can remember having coaching sessions with you via Zoom when you were lifeguarding. You're like, all right, hold on 1 second because somebody might be drowning right now. Let me hold on 1 second. Like I remember having those conversations. All right, so a lot there, Liam. What I want to do is let's go back to first what you mentioned when we first started talking. You were stuck in the victimhood, the victim mindset. If I remember correctly, you were smoking weed like it was your job. You
Oh
know, that
yeah.
was like you were smoking all the time, you were drinking, and you were playing video games, right? It
Yeah.
was like you were in that. And I know anyone who's listening right now, you know, that they might have a child or a son in that middle school, high school age range that they kind of turn into that zombie. You know, there's a ton of time spent on the internet, social media, or playing video games, smoking weed, drinking, partying, hanging out with friends, sleeping until noon, and they just kind of they get stuck in that rut. That was you as a 16-year-old. You know, it was
Yeah.
pretty much to a T. And besides that, you were open to talking to me, but you were like, well, what's the difference? It's always going to be like this. I'm never going to get out of this. And it was the world was against you. So what were some of the things that helped you get out of that victim mindset?
Um, something that I just kind of needed to realize, I'd heard it like multiple times, but something that I just kind of needed to realize was that nobody was going to like, there was nobody that was going to care more than I did about how I felt. So I think I was just constantly looking for somebody to feel bad for me, but that just wasn't really going to like happen, and I wasn't gonna be gifted something if I wasn't gonna try. So, like, if I just sat there in my room, I was just waiting for a miracle to happen, like just some random
Yep.
opportunity or something, but that just doesn't come unless you're willing to put yourself out there. So, that's kind of I think I was just laying in bed one night and I kinda just realized that, and that's kind of what got me up to go, "Okay, maybe I'm gonna go to the gym today. I'm gonna go get a membership and start going to the gym because I've heard happy body, happy mind." So I think I just kinda needed to realize that nobody was gonna pick me up if
Yeah.
I didn't do it myself. So I just started going to the gym and getting myself in shape, and then soon the, like, motivation followed.
And I 100% agree. It's the action is what dispels the overwhelm. You the action comes before the motivation comes. You have to start moving, and with the movement, then you're like, okay, I can continue doing what I'm doing right now, instead of the reverse. People are like, I'll, listen to these motivational things and then I'll get motivated and I'll get going. It's the opposite, right? So I remember clearly, you with school was not your thing. Right? And a lot of the people that are listening right now, school might not be for everyone, but I was like, okay, but you're there, right? And whatever you're doing, do it to the best of your ability, rather than saying my history teacher's a douchebag, so I'm not going to do the assignment. Well, then you're shortchanging yourself and what you can offer to the world, even if it's not the most engaging assignment. It's an assignment that was assigned to you, so do it to the best of your ability. And the same thing with the gym. You set some goals, and I think it was around like what you were going to bench, right? And I think and you were really strong too. Like I think you wanted to bench like 250 or something like that when you weighed like 148 or
Yeah.
160. It was something like a lofty goal. And I remember when you reached it, one, you got your assignments done, and you were texting me like, I was like, all right, what are your assignments this week? And you're like, this, and this. When are you going to do this? Well, I don't know. I think I want to. And I'm like, bullshit, get it done. Like, here we go. And then the same thing with the gym. And you were sending me your progress and your updates. And I remember when you hit it, you're like, this light went on your head as well. You're like, all right, I set this lofty goal and I was able to achieve it by the consistency of doing the shit that you didn't want to do. And you did it on a regular basis. But then you had a little bit of a snag. So I remember, and I'll get these calls from you or these texts like, yo, can we talk really quick? Something bad happened. And so there was a situation with you in the car with like some wine coolers or something like that. And you posted
Yeah,
something on
yeah.
Snapchat.
I had,
Talk
like,
to
the
us a little bit
beard on.
about that.
Yeah, so I was just being really dumb, and we were sitting in a parking lot, and I just, like, posted a for whatever reason, just 16-year-old me decided to, like, post a picture of a beer in a car, and then got in trouble with that and lost my car for 3 months, I think it was, so for the whole summer, so just lost all transportation there. That really sucked, and that's kinda when I
Yeah.
really started to, like, turn around a bit, was that summer where I lost my car.
Yep.
So I actually couldn't be more grateful for that. It kinda just, like, clicked in me, like, wow, like, what was I doing? Like, what could I possibly have been thinking? Like,
Yep.
how could that possibly have turned into something good? I don't
And
even know the result I was looking for.
our converse, and I think you were looking for help, like you were really calling out for it, which is why you posted. Like subconsciously, I believe you were doing those things in that way. And I
Yeah.
remember having a conversation with your parents about that. And part of one of the things why I believe this works is like we'll have a conversation, and then like I'll learn something from what's going on in the conversation, but then I'll also talk to the parents. Like, so I talked to Jason and Tanya about what was going on, and I'll tell you like, listen, Liam, I need to talk to your parents about that. Is that cool with you that we have that conversation? You're like, yes. So when I got onto a phone call or a Zoom meeting with your parents, they were so distraught about this. They're like, how is this even possible? How could we, what did we do wrong as parents? And I first normalized, listen, stuff like this will happen with kids. It's how we respond, right? And I said, there needs to be a bit of like uncomfortable experience for you over the next few months. And you were pissed off at me that I said that, but I was like, I do believe there needs to be some like loss of privilege here. Like, and losing a car is a significant thing. And so when I talked to your parents about it, they were unsure. And that was my advice to them. All right, take the keys away for a period of time. And you were probably like, this douchebag, I can't believe you said that. But like looking back, as you realize, that was such a huge life lesson for you. Like you made a mistake and you paid the price for the mistake. And that's not something you're ever going to do again, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. No, I had just gotten my license, like, a couple months before, and then I lose it for as long as I've had the license, and that just really sucked.
Yeah.
So
So fast forward now, we started doing this again. We're working together over the course of 2+ years, and I invited you to join that the foundation group, which meets, it's about twice a month. And what I did was I set it up to where there's anywhere, it's like depends on the meeting, like there might be 10 kids, there might be 20 kids, some middle school, some high school, a couple kids that are freshmen in college type age range, and invite on a guest mentor it'll be a guy that I've connected with either on the podcast or through my travels that has a really cool story and some life lesson or piece of advice to teach to young men. And it's been really cool for me to go through that experience. But more than anyone in the group, I mean, my son participates and I think he gets a lot out of it. But when you join the group, One, I know you're sucking in all this information like a sponge. Is there a piece of information that this guy, I think about Jamie Gruber, who's in GoBundance, and he was talking about investing in like multifamily houses. And you were like, can I get your contact information? And I know that your wheels were spinning like right now. If I can leverage the window washing business and this credit card processing business into purchasing a home that I could Airbnb or rent out and then buy another home, like I see the wheels spinning in your head. Or there's a guy who's talking about he became an author and this was his process, or a guy who's talking about training or whatever it is. You were gathering all that information and you would ask a lot of poignant questions to the group. So talk to us a little bit about your experience in that group coaching session, the group foundation.
Yeah, foundation's been like very cool and unique because I love listening to podcasts because I love learning new information that I can. And now I'm getting to basically watch a podcast happen right in front of me, and I get to be interactive with it. So I get to sit here and listen to what they're saying, but then I can also just go, hey, I got a quick question for you. And now I suddenly become the podcast host for a quick second.
Yeah.
And so it's just really cool to be able to do that. I haven't been able to make it to all the meetings, but to all the ones that I have been there, they've all been great. They've got business mentors, mindset mentors, just kind of anything that you can really think of has been on the foundation. And it's so no matter like really what your passion could be, you'll definitely be able to get something out of the foundation because there will be someone at some point that their interests line up with yours. Just because everybody's so unique that comes
Yep.
on the podcast
And
or on the foundation.
the cool thing is, as you go through it, I ask for volunteers. If anyone has a question, if anyone wants to participate, you're always the one with their hand up, trying to step outside of your comfort zone. Because asking a question to a guy who might, be an author, or might, I think about the guy Akshay Nanavate, who's the guy who wrote the book Fearvana, who is going to do this expedition in Antarctica, the solo expedition. The dude is a total savage. You're like, I have a question. I want to, ask you for advice on overcoming, this or intentional discomfort. So to step outside of your comfort zone in that way, some kids were hesitant to do that. You're always ready to put yourself out there on a limb to learn something, and it's benefited the group by you being a part of that. And so I wanted to express my gratitude to you for stepping outside of your comfort zone, because it's benefited the entire team by you doing that. You've been more of like a team captain, so to speak, in that capacity. So if you can go back, Liam, to the time that we met, and so Liam Henkel now is able to have a conversation with the 2021 version of yourself. What piece of advice would you give yourself? What would you tell yourself?
You know, I've actually thought about this question quite a bit, especially recently, because I just kind of I see it a lot, the question a lot, and to myself, I wouldn't have told myself anything because things wouldn't have played out the same way if I
Yeah.
did. If I could have like told
Yeah.
myself something, then I wouldn't be in the same situation that I'm in right now. So, I guess my piece of advice would just be to, like, trust that things are working themselves out. Like, just to kind of trust that something greater is, like, working its way out, whether you believe in God or whatever you believe in, just to kind of trust that whatever's happening is happening for a reason and that it does get better. Yeah.
It's like every single thing that's happened to you led you to this moment right now. So when people are like, why did that happen? Well, it happened because it was supposed to happen, because now you are where you are and you get to decide what that turns into and what that leads into. All right. So take, you wouldn't want to change anything that happened to you because you are killing it. You're crushing it right now. You're living at your dreams. But say you meet a kid who is really struggling. They're like, Liam, I need some help. And you are a part of that kid's journey. So there's a random kid who's really struggling with, he has no motivation. He's blaming the world for all of his problems. He's smoking, he's drinking, he's playing video games, he's holed up in his basement. What do you say to that kid?
I think I would tell him to find some things that he's scared of and slowly achieve them, slowly go and do them. So, for example, that's like one of the reasons why I wanted to do this podcast was because I consider myself pretty antisocial and I could be a bit awkward. And so, one of the things I wanted to do was come on the podcast because that was like a fear of mine. So, because when you can overcome something that you're scared of or do something you're scared of, you feel like you almost have like a power over yourself. Like, oh, I did this.
Yep.
Oh, what else can I do? So when you accomplish something that you were scared to do in the first place, the reward is like, it's amazing.
And beyond that, and I love that, there's a whole Andrew Huberman podcast. And if you haven't started listening to Dr. Andrew Huberman, Liam, check him out. The podcast is called the Huberman Lab, and he goes through and he makes things that are he's a neurobiologist from like Stanford University, but he makes things that are very, very difficult concepts become very approachable in the way that he explains them. But one thing he's talked about recently, he actually had David Goggins on. He interviewed Goggins, which was a great interview. And he talks to Goggins about one thing that we've started to learn about our brain is that our brain has a specific region. I can't remember the name of the region in our brain right now, but we have this region in our brain, and basically the region in our brain that is associated with difficult things and challenges. And when you knowingly do something that you know is going to suck, like for example, jumping into a cold shower, you know it's going to suck and you do it anyway, this region in your brain starts to grow in that things that you know are going to suck and you overcome them. You start to develop this capacity and this resiliency that you become the type of person that as challenges are there, you know you can overcome these challenges. And it starts to lay these train tracks down in our brain that we are the type of person that will do these types of things. So you started to do that at some point in your life where
Yeah.
this is this thing that I know that's in front of you that's going to suck. Then the next time that you do something you know that's going to suck, you're the type of person that does it. Now you make these promises to yourself. Conversely, if you would have given up on those things, now you're the type of person that is not capable of doing those things. So you're able to train your brain that way, and it continues to grow. And it's like this life force that you have. So you mentioned right now being on the podcast was something that you were a little bit scared of. And I remember asking you, I said, hey, in the future, I'd love to interview you to get your perspective. And at first you're like, yeah, maybe. All right, we'll see. And then finally you're like, yes, I want to do it. Let's schedule it. And I'm like, let's do it right away then. I don't want to let any time pass. So that little devil on your shoulder starts talking to you. So this is something that you're doing right now that you were a little bit worried about doing, and you're killing it, by the way. So what's the things in the future that you're like, I'm a little bit worried about this? So what are the things right now that you're going to challenge yourself to do?
So I can't really think of anything off the top of my head right now, but I recently, probably in the about like a couple weeks ago, probably like 3, 4 weeks ago, I was in a rut for about 2 months or so where I was getting quite lazy again, and couldn't get myself to go and do anything again, where I wasn't like depressed or anything, but I just had a kid and I didn't feel like getting up to go and work, even though I knew I needed to. And I was trying like quite a few things just to try and like get myself up to do it. But if I did start to go and work, I would end short, or wouldn't really go and finish what I was doing. Um, and so I started trying to do things that I knew would be like good, like this podcast, but I was scared to do, because a lot of the times you can get in your own head and block something great just because you're scared of doing it. So I decided to start trying to do things that scared me a bit. So I was terrified. So I started like the new credit card processing job. And what I have to do is go in person to businesses and talk to the owner of the business, and try and sell them on using our credit card processor. And that was like terrifying to me. So I was like trying to find anything to not have to go
Yeah.
do that. And then one day I was just like, okay, I can sit here and like I can choose my pain at this point. I can sit here and like have just a bunch of anxiety knowing that I should be working and not doing anything about it, or I can go and get a little bit of adrenaline by actually going and doing it. So I just went out and started doing it, and like I think like my very first door knock that I did, I absolutely just choked my pitch, and there was like a bunch of it was like some shoe store, and there were a bunch of people in there, and the owner literally laughed me out of the place. Like he goes, "What the hell is this guy talking about?" and just started laughing and told me to get out, and everybody was just looking at me. But like all you could do in that situation is just laugh and go on to the next one. And then after like 3 of those, then I was able to land somebody. So just a few more later, and I was able to land somebody, and like the reward of that was like it was great. I was just so happy after I did that. And then that really helped me get out of my rut, was just doing something that was like out of my comfort zone. And then you get comfortable with it and you try and find something new. So like today, it's real feel of -16 and I have to go out and knock 50 businesses in person. And so right now I really do not want to do that, but I know when I get back to the house after doing that, I'm going to be so happy and just chilled out for the rest of the night because I went out and did that.
It's interesting. One thing that you and I have talked about over the years is the language that we use when we speak to ourselves. Right. And it's, we had Mark England on the foundation, and you were one of the ones who stepped up and talked to him or whatever. And you start to notice these little trends in the ways that we speak, and you were able to overcome a lot. But even when you said, I have to go out and knock on 50 businesses, if you reframe that to
Get you.
I
Yeah.
get to, because if you were unable to do that, say the roads were like plowed in and snowed closed and whatever, or tore your Achilles and you weren't able to walk, like you get to today go walk to some businesses, knock on some doors, have conversations with people. So if you reframe it in your head, now it's an opportunity rather than a problem in the future. And then you get to, after having an opportunity to talk to these people, you get to come home and hold your baby girl and kiss Sammy.
Yeah.
And there's all these great things that are happening in your life because you changed your mindset. So it's really cool to watch you do what you're doing, because so many people would have. And I remember it was, I want to say, Liam, it was the end of March of 2023 when we had a foundation call, and you were like, can you hang on the call for a little while? I have to tell you something. And that's when, like, we had Cal Callahan on the foundation, and I love that dude. Cal is like, he hosts the podcast The Great Unlearn. I know he's friends with your father. Great guy. And you hung on, and you're like, I was like, yeah, dude, whatever you need. So I hung on, and I remember I was up in Massachusetts doing a workshop, and afterwards you're like, Sammy's pregnant. And I was like, all right. I'm like, how do you feel about that? And we walked, we spent about a half hour talking through it or whatever. And Julie is a labor and delivery nurse. People that listen to the podcast know my partner. Julie's a labor and delivery nurse, and she's also going back to get her master's degree to become a psych mental health nurse practitioner. So she has that therapeutic process of what she's doing. And as a labor and delivery nurse, she got onto a couple calls with Sammy and helped talk her through different things that were going on in her head. But it wasn't like you guys were like, yes, we're having the baby, or no, we're not. You were like, let's find out all this information. And there's a million different things. And it's not only our life, it's someone else's life at stake here. So talk to me a little bit, or talk to us a little bit about what was going on in your head at that time. Like, there must have been a million different emotions.
Actually, I was actually in a really good place when this happened. So, because I'd been doing, I don't really know. I was while I was at the pool, because I was working at the pool at this point, but I had like a list of 10 books that I was reading, and I think I was done with like 8 of them or something. They were all like business slash like mindset books. And so in like mindset terms, I was at like a very good place. So when it happened, I was already I because I went through that breakup, that was like the lowest point that I'd ever been, and and I didn't hit that low again. I didn't go low at all. I kind of stayed positive about it and saw it more as an opportunity than anything. I was like, okay, well, like what could this possibly have to teach me, or like or just like I wonder like what will come out of this, rather than going right to, oh, like of course this would happen to me, like this sucks, like it's just my luck, like rather than going like that sort of thing. I'm like, okay, well, like let's see what this has to offer. And so like rather than seeing it as anything bad and getting sad, I was actually just saw it more of an opportunity and just started was like, okay, well, first things off, I need to like get my money straight.
Right.
So I saw it as like an opportunity to really switch mindsets, because I was at that point, I really had to go full time in school. But then having a kid obviously switches switches that. And so I had to go full time making money. So I was able to graduate high school a year early and then go make businesses and make money and all sorts of things. But I never really saw having a kid as like a downside. It just seemed like, okay, well, I'm just maybe getting ahead in life right now. So like by the time that my daughter graduates, I'll be in my mid 30s and able to travel the world. So that's kind of how I see it, is I'll be young and able to travel the world now.
Right. And not that I'm advocating that kids that are listening, if you're 17 years old, like, all right, go have a kid right now. It's because I do believe that you were at a level of maturity that you were able to handle all of the additional responsibilities that were coming your way, which was a ton of responsibilities. Not only are you responsible for yourself, your partner, and a child now, it's a big difference. And I think back to when I met you, that Liam would not have been capable of doing what you're doing right now. You're a totally different person. And in only 2 years, it's really remarkable for me to watch what you have become in a very short period of time. And like I mentioned in the beginning, your trajectory is off the charts. I mean, it is like I'm so I left a message to your parents over the summer, and I got really choked up as I left this voice note. Just having the opportunity to be witness to what you're doing it's really an honor, dude, to watch this and be a part of it, because I have no doubt whatsoever in my mind that you have like this, the sky is the limit for you. It really is. So what I'd love to know is, look at your life. What do you anticipate? Where do you see yourself heading? Is it I believe that this credit card processing thing and this window washing thing, it's like when we hear about these like Elon Musk type guys, these guys that are doing things in their garage, the Jeff Bezos kinds of guys that they're, I'm going to start by, shoveling some snow and making a couple bucks and all of a sudden running the world. Like this, I see you on this trajectory of these great things in your future. So where do you believe that's headed for you? Like if you were to draw out your future, where are you going?
Well, so I have like a short-term goal, like a 1 year goal right now. So
Yeah.
like from 1 year today, um, I would like to. So I'm living in a house right now, but I'm renting it out. And my goal is to be able to afford the down payment for it by hopefully the end of summer next year, and then being able to actually like buy out the house that I'm renting right now. So that's like a short-term goal that I have, is building up my residual income from credit card processing company so that that can pay for my living expenses. And then all of the money that I make from like window and gutter cleaning, I'll be able to use that money to go and afford a down payment on the house. And so that's like my short-term, like 1 year goal right now. And I would like to just like long-term goal. I always picture myself just with my family. Like one day I'm sitting here at the house and deciding to make a decision like, hey, like you guys want to go to Hawaii tomorrow? And then just being able to fly out to like my vacation house in Hawaii and just like looking at the ocean the next day. I think being able to make a spontaneous decision to just go on a vacation whenever you choose would just be like the coolest concept.
So however you get there, you're not worried about your like the what type of business it is that you're doing or whatever. Like you're involved with, you love the business aspect, you love the relationship piece, you love learning on a regular basis. So how you get to that point, it doesn't matter to you. Not like I need to do this or this. It's like I see this end goal in mind for myself.
Yeah, no, definitely not. I take as many opportunities as I can. So like if someone says like, "Hey, you want to do something?" Like for this credit card processing thing, was he was like, "Hey, do you wanna come join the team?" And it was like, "Yeah, like let's try it, see how it goes." And I think as long as I just keep trying different things, then I'll eventually find what I'm passionate about and see where that goes. And so I know that I want to start some big company that has a big impact on the world, but I have no idea what like I'm passionate about yet. I know that I want to make a company, but I have no idea what industry it's in. So I'm just going to keep
Yeah.
starting little businesses in all of the industries that maybe have spark a little bit of interest to me and see where that takes me. Because
And as you're on that journey to find those passions, once you understand what those passions are, and you will eventually find them, because you look for these different things that are coming your way. Mike Rowe, who was the host of the show Dirty Jobs, talks about, don't just blindly follow your passions, find your passions and then use those passions to look for opportunities and bring your passions with you to new opportunities. some people will say, oh, I'm so passionate about snowboarding. I'm only going to look for stuff with snowboarding for the rest of my life. And you miss out on other opportunities. So you love snowboarding, you love adventure. Let me take that with me and look for opportunities that I could bring that passion with me.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people can get too tied down to what they currently enjoy, and then they restrict themselves from finding something else that they could also really enjoy.
Love it.
So, like, I've been snowboarding, I think it's been 10 years now, and but I don't want to be like, "Okay, I'm starting a snowboarding company at some point," and really tying myself down to that. Because when I am on something, then I it's hard for me to change my course of mind. So, like, if I really tie myself down to a belief, then it can be quite hard to get that belief out of my head. So I try not to tie myself down to anything specifically, especially when I'm not 100% certain on it. So, like, I love snowboarding, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to start up a snowboarding company of some
Right.
sort. Maybe I will at some point, but I'm not necessarily. For all I know, I could start like a bush planting company and just be really passionate about that. But
Didn't you have a business for a really short period of time where you were selling stickers on the snowboard, like
yeah,
on
yeah.
a mountain?
Yeah, because I was like, okay, well, I really love to snowboard, but I also really need to make money. So maybe I can do both because I like to go snowboarding by myself all the time, and I ride up on the lifts with a bunch of random people. So I'm meeting people all the time. So I was just like, hey, I got some stickers in my pocket. You want to buy one? It's just like $1 a sticker. So that way I'm just like just getting to ride and make a little bit of
Yep.
money.
Yep, I
as the
remembered something like
sticker
that.
king.
And you bought them in bulk, and you're like, all right, if I buy them, I could spend $4 on all these stickers, and I'll sell them for $1 each, and I'll make 28% profit on whatever.
Yeah.
Stuck in my head. All right, so one thing that you mentioned was as you were going through that spot where you were driving around doing the DoorDash, you're spending a lot of time in the car, you were listening to a lot of podcasts, you were reading. There were like the 10 books that you wanted to read. Somebody's listening right now, and they're at a space that you were in your life as you were all these things were coming your way. Liam, what's a podcast that you would recommend, and what's a book you would recommend?
Um, I think that a book that I would recommend is The Present. I think it's like Spencer something. Let me check it really quick. The book that I would recommend, never mind. I'm not logged in on Audible right now, but it's on Audible. It's called The Present. I think it was like Spencer something. I forget who it's by, but it just really talks about staying because where I was, I was just like worried about everything and I was scared of like anything that the future had coming towards me. Um, so this book really just teaches you how to stay in the very moment that you're living and not worry too much about what the future has to offer because what you think isn't going to change that. So like what's happening is going to happen anyway. So why not be excited for it or happy rather than worried about tomorrow? If you got a job that you have to do tomorrow, you have to do that job tomorrow, whether you feel sad right now or happy right now. So it's about like choosing to be happy and not worrying about what's going on tomorrow. So that's something that I would have liked to read. I would have loved to read when I was in a bad situation there. And then a podcast. I don't. I really only listen to like business related podcasts. So, um, Sales School by Jordan Belfort, I think. Sales School is the one that I
Okay.
would recommend. Listen to that all throughout my door dashing, and just helped me be more confident when I would go up and door knock on random
Yeah.
people's houses.
Yep. And a lot of it is that, like, when we did the little devil that sat on your shoulder, we also did the corner man. Like, all right, who is the guy that sits on your shoulder that says the good stuff to you and pumps you up, and what is that person saying to you? And let's talk about who that person is. And do you remember who your corner man was? Do you remember who you personified?
I
It was your
don't know.
dad.
It
Your
was.
cornerman, and like I said, you can create a fictional character. It could be any person in the world. Like, it could be Mick from Rocky's trainer, from Rocky 1, 2, and 3. It could be anyone in the world that sits on your shoulder, talks to you. Like, who is that person? What are they saying? How do they get you to feel? And yours was Jason Henkel. Yours was your dad. And I remember talking to you afterwards, and I said, you need to tell him that. Have that
Yeah.
conversation with your dad. And he sent me a message afterwards, and he was like, I cried like a baby when my son told me that. So that made a huge impact on his life. It's Spencer Johnson that wrote the book, The
Yeah.
Present. Yeah, Spencer Johnson. So we'll put that information in the show notes. Liam, before I ask you the last question, for the Building Men audience, tell us, where we can find you. If anyone wants to reach out to you for advice or follow along with what you're doing or get you to process their credit card, business in the future, or watch their windows, where do we find you?
Yeah, so I'm not on a ton of different social media platforms, but you can find me on Instagram. The It would be LHENKEL7 on Instagram, and yeah, that's where you can find me. And if you would like to contact me about credit card processing, with a company called Rate Tracker Payments, and we help just a ton of businesses eliminate their processing fees, and we really fix that gap in the credit card processing with anything customer relations. Sometimes you'll just contact somebody. This is with any business, really. You'll try and contact somebody or call someone, and you're talking to a robot for 10 minutes just to find out that nobody could talk for the next 5 days. And sometimes that you really just can't wait on that some things. So um, with Rate Tracker, you have my personal cell, so you can call me at 3 in the morning or middle of the day, 12 middle of the day, and I will answer and be of service to you. So if you would like to reach me in terms of credit card processing, you could email me. It's just Liam.Henkel, Liam.Henkel at ratetracker.io. So
Awesome. And I also jumped on a sales call with you, and was it Adam?
that was Josh. Yeah,
Josh, you and Josh, and you went through the whole process like, okay, if I'm going to use this to process payments for coaching and or the foundation, like we went through this whole thing, and we decided together, I'm about a year away from, my business being at scale to utilize your organization. But I told you, when it is, you definitely have my business as well. So reach out to Liam in any of those ways. Or if you own your own business or have a vision for the future and you're like, I need a right-hand man to run the future of my organization, my multi-billion-dollar organization, let me get him while he's young. Here we go.
Sure.
This is the guy to reach out to. All right, Liam, last question is, someone listens to this podcast and they're totally inspired by your, what you're doing, what you're able to overcome. And at your age, being as mature, resilient, and also motivated as you are for your future. And they press pause or they press stop on this episode and they can do one thing only. And by doing this one thing, it could really change the trajectory of their life. What's that one thing someone can do?
The one thing that I would do is that thing that's really hanging over your head right now, to go and do that. So if there's something that's just giving you a little bit of anxiety, that maybe you could even be possibly listening to this podcast to try and avoid doing this thing, I would go and do that thing right now, because you're going to feel so much better when you do.
Love that. Love that piece of advice, dude. It has been an honor to have you on, man. Really, really has.
Yeah, thank you, Dennis.
Oh, my pleasure. And let's do it again in the future. So whenever you want to come back on, you let me know the next thing that you want to promote, when you're interested in promoting, your self-help series, your book in the future, whatever you're doing, whenever you want to come back on, it would be absolutely my pleasure, my honor, to talk to you again in the future. So to the Building Men audience, if you've got any level of value from this episode, please consider rating it, reviewing it, and more than anything else, sharing this episode with anyone that you think might get even a little bit of value from the message. For Liam Henkel, I'm Dennis Morolda. Go one step further than you thought you could go. We'll see you next time on Building Men. To learn more about our programs, including one-on-one mentorship coaching, the foundation, our Building Men online group community for young men, or to bring a Building Men experience to your school, check out our website, buildingmen.io, or click the links in the bio. Now, back to the show.